Hello everyone, it's great to see you. And before we start, I'd like to say, if you like the video, please like the video, and would love for you to subscribe and join this little community so you can stick around in the future and chat games with me and see what I'm playing. Today, I would like to talk about Silent Hill Homecoming, the fifth official title in the Silent Hill series, published by Konami and developed by Double Helix Games, a Western developer, which is a key point I want to discuss a little bit. The first four Silent Hill games were developed by Konami internally. They had a team called Team Silent who put the games together and consisted of primarily the same people across all four titles. And then something began to happen later in the PlayStation 2 and early PlayStation 3 era that would go on to define that generation of Japanese published titles. One of the big things that Japanese publishers wanted to do was, in order to increase sales and increase kind of the cultural imprint, I guess, overall of Japanese-made video games, they started to take their IP and license them out to developers in the West and have developers in the West make their games. And Silent Hill Homecoming was one of those results. And a big reason they did that is because if you go to that generation and you look at the type of games, right? Compare Call of Duty to Folklore, for instance, or Final Fantasy or Eternal Sonata. And you're going to see that the games that were being developed in the West were very different from the games that they were developing in Japan. And so they really wanted to bring Western developers in to use their IP and to essentially bring in a whole new fan base who was not the Japanese market, or was not the audience that was specifically now tailored towards some of the IPs that these companies were using. And so Double Helix Games was a company that resulted from the merger of two other companies, The Collective, who made games like Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, X-Files on PlayStation 2, Mark Echo's Getting Up, Contents Under Pressure, which is an awesome game that I'd love to talk about someday in the future. That studio merged with Shiny Entertainment, who made a really good PlayStation 2 title that I'd love to complete called MDK, and also worked on the PlayStation 2 era Matrix games. And so when you think about the talent that were coming together to begin working on this title, you would think, yeah, this is the right quality of folks that we would want to be working on the next Silent Hill game. And so I think that was exactly Konami's thinking. We want to bring in these folks who have a fresh perspective, who can bring a fresh perspective to this series, especially since we've gotten rid of everybody on Team Silent, essentially. And I'm really surprised, too, that this game is now ticking up quite a bit in price. But before I talk more about development, let's look at the game. Here we have, I've actually quite always enjoyed the poster that they have on the front of this game, and then just a little bit about the game on the back. And there are some details here, especially the nurse, which I will be interested in talking with you about. And on the inside, of course, we have Silent Hill Homecoming disc and booklet. And this copy of the game is in pretty great condition. I don't even think I've really perused this booklet too much. There's not too much in here. There's a whole, discussion on who all the folks are in the game, and a little bit about how the controls work and exploring the environment, your inventory wheel. If you played a Silent Hill game, all this is going to sound pretty familiar. And before I go on, I have to share with you a little bias. Just a little bit. And it'll start with, I'm going to show you some games. I just want to show you some of my favorite titles that I own, and that's Silent Hill on PlayStation. And look at this copy. I mean, this copy is in a fantastic condition. And I'm so excited that whenever I want, I can just take the disc out and I can pop it into my PlayStation and give it a run. But we're not done. I have Silent Hill 2. And look at this fantastic, again, we have a complete copy here of Silent Hill 2, ready and running in perfect condition. And we're not done. Oh, I got Silent Hill 3. Oh my god, look at this. It's such a good copy. And it's complete all the way. I even have the original soundtrack here, which is very impressive. I think these are really hard to find in such a condition. We're not done. I got Silent Hill 4 as well. And so the bias that I really want to share with you is that I love these games, and I have very much taken care of these over the years. As you can see, they're in such good condition. And it's because the series, for me, was really my introduction to survival horror at large. But also some of the themes that carry across the games are very intriguing and really pull me in. And especially as a fan of Silent Hill 2, which is my favorite of the games, are very meaningful in a lot of ways. I played Silent Hill Downpour. I have it somewhere. It's in a box, so I didn't dig through it to find it and show it to you as well. And I quite liked Downpour, so this has nothing to do with just not being a fan of Silent Hill games made by Team Silent. But Silent Hill Homecoming, let's talk about this game. A little bit on the background still. There wasn't a lot of info about it until 2007 E3 when Konami unveiled Silent Hill 5. And they told us, hey, it's going to be developed by Double Helix Games. The only thing we knew up to that point is it was going to carry some similar psychological roots to Silent Hill 2. And the thing that kind of grinds my gears there is the whole identity of the Silent Hill series has been defined by, oh, psychological trauma. And you're seeing that a lot with the new identity of the new Silent Hill games as well, a little bit. But let's talk about these games, right? I mean, on the PlayStation, Silent Hill was about a cult resurrecting basically a demon god through the use of, immolating a child, right? Silent Hill 2, we know a little bit about the story, and we know that the psychological roots thing really originates from this game's title. But Silent Hill 3 is a direct follow-up to Silent Hill 1's story, and again has largely to do with the cult and nothing to do with this whole psychological mumbo jumbo. And Silent Hill 4 breaks the entire format, goes outside the town of Silent Hill, and really has, again, nothing to do with this whole psychological thing. And so it really drives me crazy when people, especially the owners of this IP, really say that's what the identity of the series is about, because it goes to show me that they actually don't know the identity of the series and have likely not played the games. And so that's a big frustrating point for me, that at the helm of the ship is a captain who's never put a ship to dock, right? Has never read the stars, so to speak. Not that I have, so that's probably a terrible analogy to try to use. But I think a lot of that does show in Silent Hill Homecoming, Silent Hill 5. And so let's talk about the story. You play as Alex, and he is returning to his home at Shepherd's Glen. And when he gets there and on his way, it's kind of looking a little wacky. Alex is returning from war, but the town is pretty foggy. There's no one around. There's, parts of the road that just disappeared into thin air. There's monsters stalking about, and Alex finds himself on a gurney in a hospital at the beginning, trying to break free and get out. And the game will follow some very similar psychological roots as I was describing earlier, and as what the developers were hinting at before the game was announced and subsequently released. Silent Hill Homecoming's story is very formulaic in my eyes. I think I was probably spoiled a little bit because I was familiar with the story before I actually had the opportunity to play through the game fully. And so I think that does kind of inform a little bit of bias on my part. But I think in terms of pacing, the story itself is structured in an acceptable way and goes through its plots in an acceptable way. But a lot of the big things you're going to learn about the game, about the character, about what's going on in his life, even if I didn't know them, they wouldn't particularly surprise me through kind of the touches of hints and things that you'll get throughout the course of Silent Hill Homecoming. But it was equally disappointing because again, the developers were out here saying, we really want to take inspiration from the identity of the Silent Hill series. And I don't even know what that means, because of the first 4 titles, one of those really matches a lot of the narrative beats that they were going for in Silent Hill Homecoming. And I don't think they do them as well. And so when it really comes down to playing the game, if I want to experience what is a repetitive story, why wouldn't I just do it on the best iteration, which is Silent Hill 2? And so from a story lens, I was pretty disappointed with Silent Hill Homecoming, just because I wanted the game to do something different. And I think that was something that the first 4 titles always continued to do, and really set you on a different path for each of them. And that mystery is what really drives the survival horror experience, right? If the world feels too familiar, then I think that can be problematic. And the world is defined in a lot of ways by the narrative in which you're drawing throughout it. From a gameplay sense, this game changes a lot in comparison to the first 4 titles. In a couple ways, right? Silent Hill 1 through 4, essentially a lot of the environments had fixed camera perspectives, or kind of locked up camera perspectives. Silent Hill 5 drops a little bit of that, makes it a little more of a free exploring environment within your camera's point of view. And Alex is a very different combat person than those other titles. And I think a lot of the justification for that was, Henry is just a dude, Harry is just a dude, Cheryl is just a girl, but Alex is a badass, right? For example, he's a war veteran returning home from the military, and so he knows how to use a gun, he knows how to fight. And so for this game, how the fighting works is, instead of being this lock-on mechanic where you swing a little plank and then the enemy falls down and then you clunkily stand over them and try to whack them and so on and so forth, Alex is more like a locked-on style. You'll lock on to the enemy, you can strafe around them, you could duck and get out of their way when they swing and attack. And the game's gameplay style will rely on you to be familiar with these controls in order to do well against the enemies. Even on one of the easier difficulties, I found that the enemies were very kind of glitchy. In a lot of the ways that you could reliably kill them was to cheese them into locking their animations, and attacking them in a certain pattern and so on and so forth. So I was kind of disappointed from the lens of the gameplay, just because it wasn't as fluid as I was hoping for it to be. And I really wish that they'd spent a little more time creating a fluidity in the animations and in the combat, because if they really wanted to develop those aspects of the Silent Hill series, they should have done it with a bit more of a lens of, let's do this really, really good. And I don't know if that was exactly at the top of their whiteboard when they were coming up with ideas about improving the combat. But it is kind of fun to see how the combat could have been different in these games. And I do appreciate that at least the developer attempted to explore some different items outside of similar to the story, just reiterate on what was previously known already. I feel like, though the fighting is a bit clunky, Alex actually exploring the environment is pretty good overall. His animations are decent. He's able to explore the environment in an effective way. One of the things that I thought was challenging is the game's other aspect relies a lot on kind of puzzle solving and things of that. This is very of nature for the Silent Hill series. But it was really easy in these environments to just miss items that you might need, because the game is pretty obscure about when and what you need to collect at times. And then also there's nothing that really indicates the item. Like in Silent Hill 2 and 3 and so on, you would clearly look at an item whenever there was something in the environment that you should interact with or pick up. And I think those little cues for Alex here in Silent Hill Homecoming weren't as obvious to me. Maybe that was just me missing it. And the lighting systems. The game is overall much darker, just in terms of its contrast and stuff, than the other titles. And so sometimes you would just not see things in the environment because of that. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. I did quite like Shepherd's Glen. I thought that visually the game world looked good, the design of it was nice, and where a little bit of environmental storytelling was needed, I thought it did have it. And so I thought that it was pretty cool. It was cool that they took it outside of Silent Hill, and they take you to Shepherd's Glen instead. So I thought, overall the navigation of the world, there are some classic aspects to it, the Silent Hill maps and so on. Navigation was very straightforward at times, and the world design was nice. Akira Kurosawa returns, and he does the soundtrack here. Wait, Akira Yamaoka. Now, if Akira Kurosawa was doing the score for this game, I would be very impressed, being that he passed away some time ago. Yamaoka's here. He's doing the soundtrack, and that's super meaningful because he did all of the original Silent Hill game soundtracks too, and he was there with Team Silent. And that dude is just a total badass. You should go watch The Making of Silent Hill 2. It's a fantastic documentary, and there's a really great section in there that shows Yamaoka's kind of process of doing the music production. And what's really cool is that if you go explore some of the samples that were used to do the soundtracks for the first few games, you learn a whole lot about old MIDI sample libraries, because a lot of those sounds are very accessible, and I just thought it was so cool what Akira Yamaoka was able to do with all that. Overall, I really enjoyed the soundtrack here. I love Yamaoka's music, so I think, again, he steps up to the plate and really takes it home. A big part of it is that I think the identity of the games really relies on great sound design, and the music in particular is needed to have that feel and vibe, and I think no one can really do it in the same way Yamaoka is capable of. Speaking of which, as far as sound design goes for the enemies, I thought was pretty good as well. I have no standout examples to provide you, but I thought they gave a good tone and felt immersive enough in their environment to make me feel engaged as a player. I have the PlayStation 3 version of this game. There's also the Xbox 360 version. Graphically, I don't know what was going on with this title. I don't think it looks great at times, especially the models for the characters look super wacky. And I would recommend go look at the comparisons online of the PS3 and the Xbox 360 versions of the game. And what you'll notice is that the 360 version just looks a lot better in a lot of ways. And so graphically, the Silent Hill 2 games, or the Silent Hill games series, is not about setting a standard, or not about going all out in the graphics department, but visually this game is just kind of ugly. I don't think it's held up well. The lighting system's pretty good, but the things that show up in your light are sometimes scary, and not for the right reasons. And so visually I was kind of disappointed with what this game had going for it, and I think its later iteration, Downpour, would do a lot better in that department, in my opinion. There are some things I want to touch on as well in terms of just overall the iterative nature of this game. And now I'm biased. I showed you some of the titles that I owned out of this series. There are a number of characters in this game, whether it's the nurses, Pyramid Head, so on and so forth. I won't rant about it. I'm sure you've heard it before if you are familiar with anything to do with this series and retrospectives and reviewers discussing the game. But again, going back to it, the lack of creativity was really draining on me as a player. And I had to roll my eyes a couple times at just how iterative the story felt, the characters felt, the world felt at times. And I know that the developers really wanted to do that and kind of call out to the movies or the games and say, hey, here's the identity of Silent Hill. Here's a little fan service. Here's some of the things you'd like to see. But I felt like some of that was so personal to the game and to the characters that I get kind of offended just thinking about it. And so it kind of frustrated me as a player seeing some of that stuff throughout the game. And I wish that the developers had just decided to chart their own course, right? Like just do something you wanted to do that was different or weird or innovative. I would have much preferred that. But I know that similarly, I'm sure Konami was over their head saying, we got to play this safe, or there's a great story about, you know, around this time, Konami was like filming its employees all around the offices. Like everywhere you go, there's a camera on you. And it just goes to speak to the fact that, yeah, they might have sold the rights to a Western developer, but I'm assuming that Konami had their hands in the development process quite significantly and was telling and asking them to do such and such things. And I'm sure one of those things was, you know, we need the marketability of the brand, or sell toys or something. And Pyramid Head is our seller. We got to bring Pyramid Head into the game. So I don't exactly know. But anyways, those things did affect my enjoyability of the game. All right, I'm going to stop ranting. I played through Silent Hill Homecoming all the way, kind of reluctantly. I wasn't particularly happy by the time that I got to the end of the game. The story felt very copy-paste. The gameplay was a little too clunky, I think, for what they really wanted to do with it. And while the world was pretty nice and kind of felt classically Silent Hill designed and had great music, the game looked ugly, and my enjoyability of it was pretty low because of some of those aspects that I mentioned. And so it's really harsh to say that as a huge fan of this series, but I think Silent Hill Homecoming might be one of those that's kind of at the bottom of my list overall. And it's kind of a shame because, again, this isn't nothing to do with Team Silent being gone, because I'll say it again, I really did like Downpour. I thought it was a really good game, and I played it through to completion multiple times. I got the platinum on that game. And so to kind of hold off and come back and experience this all the way through and realize, oh, maybe it is as bad as some folks lead you on to believe it is. Again, just my perspective, but was disappointed with Silent Hill Homecoming. And so what I am interested in is how you felt about the game, if you played it, or do you want to play it? What are your thoughts on Silent Hill Homecoming? Again, I really appreciate you watching, and if you liked the video, please like the video, and would love for you to subscribe and stick around for more chats about games in the future. Well, until then, take care, and I'll see you next time.